So we're here this morning talking about self-awareness and self-management. We did this all when we very first started our Coffee Connects. They were on these skills that we really wanted to hone in on, and then we moved into some more system stuff. And so now we're back with just some updated information, some updated resources for you around each of these skills. As a reminder, this is who we are. I'm Emily Arkfeld, Social Emotional Behavioral Learning Specialist serving Region 2, ESUs 2, 3, and OPS. And I see I got Mackenzie and Jill on presenting with me this morning, and I see Chandra on as well, so we will let everyone introduce themselves.
Morning, I'm Mackenzie Rydell. I am the SEBL Specialist for Region 1, so that includes ESUs 4, 5, 6, and LPS. I'll let Chandra go next, except she might be driving. So I'm actually just going to introduce her because I don't want her to try to unmute.
Same with Jill, probably.
And Jill too, yeah. So Chandra is our Region 4 SEBL Specialist serving ESUs 9, 10, 11, and 17. And then Jill is Region 3. She'll be joining us shortly, ESUs 1, 7, and 8. And then Sarah is our lovely Region 5 SEBL Specialist out in the Panhandle, and she serves ESU 13, 15, and 16.
Thank you, Mackenzie. We always start with our welcome activity, our inclusion activity, just to kind of get everyone thinking along the same lines or help you transition from whatever you were doing before, or really give kind of a teaser to what we're talking about today. It is still January. We are still in the thick of winter. And so we just want to know if you had a resolution, if you set an intention, if you have a word that you chose for the year. If you would like to share with us, you can drop it in chat. Again, we always like to hear voices, but no, that's not always feasible. If you're driving, please do whatever you need to do to be safe. But would love to hear kind of what your focus is for this year. And if you want to explain any of it, we would be happy to hear that as well. Restore. Thank you, Janet. That's a great one. Awakening. Oh, I love these. Janet and Ann, when you guys do the one, because I think it's based on a book. So do you go through the whole process, or is it just kind of whatever is on your heart that you go with?
This year I just picked a word, but yes, I have gone through it in the past.
Very nice. I signed up for the emails one year for, is that John Gordon? Is it John Gordon? Okay. I signed up for his emails one year, but yes, it was much easier just to come up with a word than to do the whole process. Oh, great. I'll have to look into that, Janet. Elena Aguilar has a great reflective process that goes further than John's. Wonderful. Okay. Mackenzie, would you drop I don't want to have to, if I go back to get the PDF, thank you. Mackenzie's going to drop the PDF in the chat for everyone. And we will keep rolling on. If you get to where you are safe and want to drop something into the chat for your word, that would be great. Otherwise, wellness. Thank you. Better nutrition, Nancy. All around taking care of ourselves. Here is our Padlet link again. It is chock full of resources. We know it continues to get bigger and bigger, but if you need something, thought you saw something, can't remember where it was, it's probably somewhere in the Padlet. So again, feel free to share this out with others who cannot make these, but you think might benefit from them as well. So starting us off, again, kind of getting grounded with a quote, we found this one that says, how you are is as important as what you do. And liked this for this self-awareness, self-management, that we can do all the things, but if we're not taking care of ourselves and having ourselves in a good place, then what we do isn't going to, it still matters. It just doesn't matter as much as if we are taking care of ourselves while we're doing what we do. Thank you, Chandra, for dropping yours in there. So I think most of these names I've seen before, but our definition, our NeMTSS definition of social emotional behavioral learning is that systematic process, because we are Nebraska MTSS, and we do believe that when we do things in a systematic way, we have a better chance of sustainability and good outcomes. So that systematic process of fostering those social and emotional skills among students and adults, because what our adults do matter for them, and it matters for our students as well, in order to create those safe and supportive environments with positive behavioral and mental health outcomes for all. And so when we think about our like a behavior framework, or what we're setting up for our behavior expectations, when we have those social and emotional skills kind of at the foundation of that, then we there's a better chance of our students being able to follow our behavior expectations. And also when we have our behavior expectations in place, it provides that safe and supportive environment for our students to practice and to learn those skills as well. Mental wellness. We know, again, when we are focusing on mental wellness, we're building those skills. And when we're building those skills, we're helping improve mental wellness as well. And then same with college and career readiness. When we set up our systems with a lens for college and career readiness, again, those really go hand in hand. And so again, all of this stuff is all just tied together in what we're doing in our schools. And again, it's nothing new. These have been taught in our schools for centuries. We're just really focusing on how do we do this explicitly and make those connections for the students so that they can use them across all environments and not just in the classroom, not just in the hallway or in the school. If you've been with us for a while, I feel like we've been talking about this for like 1.5 years now, but we finally have our new skills web ready to roll, and we are really excited about this. We spent a lot of time getting a lot of feedback and trying to build this so that it covers the skills we want it to, and also that if this is like the only thing they're seeing, it's easy to understand of like, oh, I can see where I can help my students with self-regulation in the classroom. I can see where I've already been working with them on decision making. And so helping them make the connections, again, these are things that I've already been doing. And then maybe identifying some of those things of like, oh yeah, I probably could beef this up a little bit, or this is something that maybe I could weave into what I'm doing today, this week, this year, whatever. So we changed up our skills just a little bit. We changed up our social awareness to pro-social behavior. So really focusing on what we want that to look like, and then problem solving. And then we also switched up our questions that go along with that. So when we're thinking about self-awareness, really thinking about how do I know myself? And we spent a lot of time on this question because we recognize that when my space self, it looks like a typo. But we've been promised, and we researched that it is correct grammatically, that we need to know myself and not myself combined in one. And self-management, then how can I be my best self? What do I need to do in order to reach my full potential? For problem solving, how can I use critical thinking in problem solving? And relationships, how can I connect with others? And then how do I support others with that pro-social behavior? So again, today we're focusing on self-awareness and self-management. So we'll dive into those skills a little bit as well. But we're putting this out there and super excited to get this rolling. Again, that reminders, we are Nebraska MTSS. We believe things should happen systematically, and that MTSS and Nebraska MTSS is not just that triangle, that layered continuum of supports, but really it's this whole, all of these essential elements go into building a successful and sustainable system. So we need that infrastructure and shared leadership where we've got that foundation and everyone's voice is heard and feels that they can advocate for what they think is in the best interest. Communication and collaboration, and stakeholders are invited to the table. We are sharing information out. We are gathering and seeking information in. We do have that layered continuum of support. So identifying what our students and our staff need, and then how can our adults add supports on top of that for everyone to be successul. And everything, again, is done through that database decision making. So we always want data to be at the heart of the decisions that we are making, so that we are not wasting efforts or duplicating efforts. So diving a little bit more into that self-awareness, when you look on the next page, we have it broken out into 4, just like we did before. But really, we believe that self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand one's own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and the impact of those, whether on themselves or on others. recognize one's strengths and interests and apply them to goals and purpose. And again, like a direct connection to that CTE and college and career readiness, right? Identify ways to advocate for themselves, and then discover self-acceptance through reflection. So really kind of just looking in of like, am I doing the best I can? What do I, how do I know what I need? How do I advocate for that? And how do I just like love myself for who I am? So here that is broken out a little bit further. So we have, again, those 4 boxes. And then some of these look the same, some of them are reworded, and some of them are new. So again, under emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, identifying what are our positive and negative triggers. There are things that are going to upset us, but also knowing those things that make us happy. Acknowledge those internal and external behaviors. And I think a lot in the schools, we see a lot of the external behaviors, and we spend a lot of time on the external behaviors, but also recognizing that those things, there are internal things that are happening as well. And just because they're not out and in everyone's face and easily seen doesn't mean that our students and our staff might not also be grappling with some of those. And self-acceptance, again, practicing self-compassion, reflect on belonging, acknowledge the impact of experience. So everyone comes in with their own life experiences, and they're going to impact them in some way. And so recognizing that. Strengths and interests, exploring passions and talents, and utilizing strengths and connecting that to goals, and then celebrating all those, the growth and all of those little things that sometimes we get caught up on, like that we're not quite there yet, but being able to celebrate the small things along the way. And then in self-advocacy, identifying our needs, what personal assets do we come in with, practice honesty and integrity, and then developing that sense of purpose of who do we want to be and how do we get there and what are we doing? And so this is from, if anyone knows exactly how to say this, I say Washoe County School District, and they've done a lot of work. They've got a lot of easily accessible things on their website around social emotional learning. But one of the things they did was they took the surveys results of their students, and they have them in these beautiful graphs of what students are identifying as like, this is a skill that is harder for me to accomplish, understand, and things that are easier. And so it's linked in there in the bottom, but these are the ones that are on self-awareness. And so kids have a hard time accepting things that I can't control. And I would say that for every human everywhere, that is a hard thing. And a lot of those ones up there at the top are about kind of that control, knowing when I'm wrong about something, accepting that I don't have to be the best at everything I do. And they're really good at knowing what they do well, knowing that they're a good person, understanding when they don't want to do something. And so I think this is just great for them to have put together, but I think it's also can be a helpful resource of understanding our students are probably pretty good in these areas. So where maybe should we try to build in some extra work, some extra practice, some extra modeling, knowing that these are probably pretty universal in the things that are more difficult for our students to be able to do. And these are, so when we think about, I think it just came up recently that a school district or a school was asking like, how do we teach these things? How do we do this in the classroom? And so this is just that reminder that it doesn't always have to be a separate lesson. It doesn't have to be a push-in lesson. It doesn't have to be a second step lesson, but really can just be a language shift and modeling in the classroom. And so if you're in your music specials class, maybe the lesson is sharing about your favorite musician and how the words of the songs might impact your emotions or feelings. So again, what might self-awareness look like in a music lesson, or a content check-in after a math lesson? So we learned about graphing slopes today, a fist to 5 check-in, so that you and I can both be aware of how you're feeling about that new information. And so self-awareness, again, it doesn't always just have to be about like feelings and emotions. This one it's how you're feeling about the new information, but it's directly related to like recognizing like, gosh, this was frustrating for me, or, oh, this is super easy, or this is exciting. I like doing graphing slopes. I'm sure there are some people out there who do love it. That is not me, but a quick, easy way, one, for students to check in on how they're feeling about it, for the teacher to understand where is my class at. If everyone's really struggling, maybe we need to spend some more time. If everyone was like, yeah, this is super easy and great and exciting, wonderful, we can, move on and maybe build upon that. And so, a quick, easy way related to self-awareness for this one. And I think I hand it over to Mackenzie.
Yes, you do. Thanks, Emily. Okay, so we're just going to dive into some resources around self-awareness. Emily went through each of those like sub-skills briefly. And so we're just going to do some resources around each of those sub-skills. So this first area is strengths and interests. So identifying what are your strengths, your values, your interest, and just kind of figuring out who are you and what are things you enjoy, what are things you might struggle with, and where are your areas for growth. And so this first activity is a strengths chain. It's from understood.org, and it has a description for how you can do it at home as a family, and then how you can do it at school in the education setting. And so you have these the supplies, I think it's a printout, and then you have your students write down some strengths, some things that they think they are good or successful at, and then you just have them just make a little chain link. You've probably seen a chain link like this before, a paper chain, and just to remind them that their strengths go beyond just one and done, and they really can create something beautiful with their multiple strengths. And then you can actually have everybody in the classroom make one and connect them all, and kind of use that as a visualization and a little decoration in your classroom to remind your students of the collective strengths that they all bring to the table. And throughout the activity, you can have good conversation in your class about how everyone has strengths and challenges, and that as a community together, we're stronger together. So that's a nice little activity. That middle one, the My Way inventory, this is just a little, I guess an inventory, like a little mini assessment type thing, self-assessment. When you go through and you express, yes, this resonates with me, yes, this doesn't. And then at the end, you kind of get to like a product for your learning. So how do you enjoy learning or showing what you learn or expressing yourself in different areas? So through writing, through oral expression, through music, through the arts, through computer and technology. And so a way to build some of that self-awareness of how do I like to express myself or show what I learned, and just a nice little self-reflection tool. And then this last one on the right, a character strengths activity handout. It's a handout and it has these different character strengths on it. And then it kind of describes each one below. So it could be used as a visual to go through and see like, oh, which one resonates with me, or where do I think I'm doing really well, or is there one on that list that I think I might want to try to work on? So just a short handout there. And then the last link on the bottom, additional strengths activities, that is just a post that has a couple more activities beyond this if you're looking for something different. Okay, so if you haven't been to the career development site on NDE, it's really great. It has a wealth of resources and pre-made lessons. And fun fact, self-awareness is one of their core areas they have lessons in. So we pulled a couple of those. This one here is called the 5 Things. So on the website, if you go to it, you can filter, I think, by grade. So if you're serving a certain age area, you can try to find lessons that are specific to that age. So it'd be age appropriate. And then you download the lesson plan. It's pre-made. It has the objectives and all the things that you need in there. And so this is a nice lesson on how students can explore their values, priorities, and interests in life. And I think we forgot to say, if you see that little arrow clicky icon, that means that the image on the slide is linked. So if you're in the slides, you can just click on the thing and it'll take you right to that website. So, and then the whole website was linked at the bottom of that slide there. Okay, so this one, we're getting into those emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. So when we think of this area of self-awareness, we're thinking of recognizing and labeling emotions. We're thinking about identifying those positive and negative triggers. We're thinking about how do our emotions, thoughts, and behaviors connect together and impact one another. And we're thinking about acknowledging both those externalizing behaviors and those internalizing ones that might not be as obvious to those around us, but maybe even to us. So identifying what I like to call your body feels. Okay, so this resource here comes from Hanover Research. It is a 3-page, I guess if they call it a checklist. The image here is the bottom half of the page. And so if you open up the resource, it actually starts with identifying some cues that you might have a student that's struggling with internalizing behavior. And they based it off of the SRSS screener. And so things like being shy or withdrawn or emotionally flat, some of those things that you might notice in your students. And so then it offers some strategies to respond to the behaviors. What do I do if I notice a student seems withdrawn? It gives you some ideas for what you can do moving forward. So things like modeling some of those more positive behaviors. Emily's example with that kind of like that verbal of when you listen to this song, what does it make you feel inside? And maybe you do that as like a welcoming activity in your class and you're kind of modeling that behavior. You're saying, hey, when I listen to this kind of music, I really feel like it pumps me up in the morning. So let's listen to one of those today and see how it affects our mood. And then opening up to them and letting them identify. I think there's research that shows in young kids that if you are asking them for skills or to identify something, they do a lot better of a job if you model it and kind of talk through it for them, with them, and then you give them the opportunity. So like when I feel anxious, I like to talk to my friends and take a couple deep breaths and maybe go to a quiet place for a couple minutes. What do you do when you feel anxious? And they're a lot better at identifying and thinking through those scenarios when you're giving them kind of that pre-learning, what does it look like for me? So it goes through some of that. So modeling, maybe giving some explicit instruction on that self-monitoring your mood, making sure you're giving some opportunities in the classroom to interact or talk or to get in touch with how you're doing on an internal level, and then give some choices. And then the second page, which again is the picture on the screen, goes through the de-escalation cycle. So it goes through each phase. So you can see here they have the calm phase, triggers, agitation, acceleration, peak, de-escalation, and recovery. And then it just provides some things that could be implemented at each stage to help students in situations where they might be dealing with some internalizing behaviors. So for example, if you have a student who might be getting agitated, you can show them empathy and recognize that they might be struggling and communicate that you might be concerned about them, try to redirect them, give them some choices. Whereas when a student is in the peak of escalation, you're probably not going to have that much conversation. You're really focusing on how can I keep the student and those around us safe? How can I notify people who might be necessary to respond? Things like that. And so just a little checklist to kind of help getting through that escalation cycle. And I think they're specifically made for internalizing behaviors. So for you to use. This next one is focusing on self-acceptance. So when we think of self-acceptance, we're thinking of self-compassion, identifying areas for growth, reflecting on where we feel like we belong, and then acknowledging that our experiences have an impact on us and how we might go about our everyday life. So here we have a couple exit tickets. These are just little, I guess, checkouts. It could be used at the end of a class, at the end of a day. You could hand it in. You could just do it personally to reflect on it. And thinking about how are you feeling about the lesson? How are you feeling about what we learned? Do I think I did a good job persevering at this? And it's not so much about you getting the answers as the educator. It's more about you providing the opportunity for your students to reflect on these things and maybe thinking about where they could grow or where they did really well. And then the top right image is from First 5. This is a resource or a website, I guess, that sends you resources to your inbox. I think it's free, so it'd be really nice, and they have different grade areas. So if you're looking for some ways to supplement or looking for some activities, but you don't want to do the heavy lift of looking for them, this is a great way to get some of those resources straight to your inbox. Highlighting that career development website from NDE again. This lesson is called Who Am I? It is for students to think about difference and similarities between self-perceptions from themselves and perceptions from others. It hits on some of those career standards, thinking about critical thinking, managing in your personal career development, attending to your well-being, but it also hits on that self-compassion competency where you're thinking about how your experiences might impact how you think about yourself versus maybe how others think about yourself. I know personally, I tend to have different perceptions about what I think I do or can do versus what others view me as. So just a really nice reflection tool for our students and maybe even for ourselves if we're doing it with our students. And self-advocacy, I think Emily, we could play the video. It's only like a minute and a half.
Hey guys, today we are going to discuss self-advocacy. Self-advocacy is the act of speaking up for yourself, making your own decisions, voicing your own opinions, asking questions, setting boundaries, and actively learning how to get information so that you can understand things better. Adults should assist in the teaching of self-advocacy skills as early as possible. They should talk with their students about their strengths and weaknesses and have ongoing conversations about learning and thinking differences. Adults should praise their students for speaking up and encourage them to ask for and use any forms of assistance that are available to them to improve their overall educational experience. While it is typical for your parents or guardians to advocate for you when you were in elementary and junior high, you can begin to practice and put self-advocacy skills into place once you enter high school. When advocating for yourself, it is important to always remain calm and be respectful. Also, when advocating for yourself, you want to be sure that you have valuable information to add to the conversation and that what you are presenting is applicable to the discussion and your overall well-being. Let's look at a scenario. Michelle is a 10th grade student at Wonder High School. After receiving notification of the classes she was projected to take for her 11th grade year, she's scheduled to meet with her school counselor. Michelle informed the counselor that she would prefer to take an art class instead of the debate class she was placed in. Michelle shared her interests in art and explained why art would be a better choice for her. After listening, the counselor agreed to change her schedule. Both parties were very happy. Reflection. What does self-advocacy mean to you? Why do you think self-advocacy is important? Discuss a time in which you had to advocate for yourself. How did it go? Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, click the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
All right, so that YouTube channel actually has a ton of different short little snippets like that that hit on different skills. I like it. So like obviously staff are really busy, and so doing a whole like how do you do self-advocacy or how do you teach these skills, that can be a quick little, hey, watch this little clip and see what easy things you can do. So like praising students when they do speak up for themselves. That's not like a whole full-blown lesson, but it's something you can do in the everyday, kind of like Emily was talking about earlier. It doesn't have to be this whole big thing. You can really just slide it into the conversations you're already having every day with your students. But then it offers some examples and some discussion questions. So if you are looking for something a little bit more extensive, you can play that little snippet and just have some nice conversation with your students around you. The right image here, this is actually an image from a lesson plan that was created from the Houston Independent School District. It's geared for 3rd through 5th graders. And so it has like what a typical lesson plan, like the objectives, things you need to do, steps for how it looks, some discussion questions, all around self-advocacy. And then as you can see here, the handout has what the students would engage in kind of as a permanent product for that lesson.
Hey guys,
All right, so now we're going to move into our self-management skills. These are thinking about your ability to identify and use strategies to self-regulate, to think about goal setting, progressing and achieving your goals, displaying self-discipline through both success and struggle, and thinking about that organization piece that I know so many students and even adults could continuously strengthen. And the question we think about when we're thinking about self-management is, how can I be my best self? What do I need to be my best self? How do I manage myself so I can be best and successful? So these skills, again, kind of look like that: goal setting, self-regulation, self-discipline, and organizational skills. So when you look at our web that we've made, you'll see the competency in the middle. Emily, can you? Thank you. And then you'll see those kind of sub skills that we're probably hitting on a little bit more implicitly in our work. So identifying your coping strategies, thinking about boundaries, thinking about reframing, thinking about goal setting. What are some barriers that might come up? How can we plan ahead? That's my restorative strength that comes out a lot when we do goal setting. Monitoring your progress. So it's not just getting that big win at the end, it's those little wins as we go. Thinking about self-discipline. How can you acknowledge your mistakes and your successes and continuously improve through there? Expanding your comfort zone, thinking about perseverance. Those are all some examples of skills that we might be working on. And again, this web isn't like an end-all be-all. So if it's not listed, that doesn't mean it doesn't fall under self-management or self-awareness. This is just a starting point to go off of. This Washoe County, here is their list of skills that they assessed. So they split it up into emotion, goals, and schoolwork. And you can see how their students rated. We know that you probably don't care about what their students rated. So we really just put this out there as another way for you to think about, like, what are some of those self-management skills that I might be thinking about with my students. The link below, and it's also in the Padlet, it actually has the assessment that they use. They made it with the university, so it is a validated resource. So that's kind of cool. That's free, open to the public to use. And it's really neat if you're interested to see how some schools have gone about supporting that social emotional development. This district has built out far and wide, and so it's kind of cool to poke through their website and see all the things that they've done. So some skills, thinking about concentrating when there's noise around you, finishing your tasks when they're hard, getting your schoolwork done right away, instead of maybe procrastinating until last minute, versus some of those skills that our students that might be a little easier are waiting to say something until people are done talking, setting goals for yourself, listening to your teacher, coming to class prepared. So just thinking about what does that look like? It's a little more concrete when they're spelled out like this. And then what does self-management look like kind of in that everyday conversation that we can do? We're thinking about homework completion, just being a little more explicit. When you set a goal, you're going to use your self-management skills to help stay organized and keep track of when your assignments are due. I know that we have planners and we help our students write down, we remind them to do that, but helping them remember, like, why are we doing this, or how will this help me? What's in it for me? That can help them identify the value in those skills. And then preparing before a test. As we prep for a test, let's think about some things that maybe 3 things that help you do your best when you're preparing. And then what are some things that might decrease or get in the way of you doing your best? So maybe you know and you can identify that when you study by yourself in a quiet area, that's easier for you to prepare versus being in a loud, noisy environment might be harder for you to concentrate. So just giving them the opportunity to reflect and think about what are some ways that they can be proactive and manage themselves as they prepare for what's going on. Oh, Jill's going to take it away with some resources.
Perfect. Thanks, Mackenzie. Yes, moving right into just some resources around some of those self-management skills that Mackenzie has mentioned. So the first one, really focusing on those organizational skills, and we have a few apps that we have just kind of identified on there, maybe some that you're familiar with, maybe some that are new to you, but some great ones that could be utilized for both students as well as adults when really working to target those organizational skills. That first one there, remember the milk. That one, you can set reminders, you can make some checklists in there, you can tag, you can color code, make some like different subtasks and things like that within that app. The Google Keep, just a great way to be able to make some virtual notes, maybe some virtual checklists. You can share them with other Google users as well. And then Evernote is another great one. You're able to really sync your notes between different devices. You can add text, you can do images, like audio, things like that within there as well. And then be able to bring them, since you're able to share to different devices or sync to other devices. So that's another great one to be able to utilize as well. In the bottom of that slide there, you'll see the understood.org video. That is another just great resource when we're thinking about organizational skills. There's a video on there that talks a little bit about just some different strategies in targeting organization. And then just within that link there, tons of other just resources where it's just kind of like takes a deep dive into really thinking about how can we really help support organization for both students as well as adults. Mackenzie has talked about this a couple times throughout as well, but we really just kind of wanted to link in a specific lesson plan that has to do with some of the skills that we're talking about within. So within self-management here, time management falls. And so this is just a great one from that NDE through CTE of practicing some time management skills. So we would encourage you to check that out as well. Goal setting there is up next, and really thinking about how do we set some like individual goals. And so there is a link you can see there. It's a PDF that you can print off, or maybe even kind of use that idea to develop your own individual goal setting cards. Again, could be used for within PLCs, within groups, for students as well, to be able to really identify and kind of break down what that goal is that they have set for themselves. And then vision boards, what a great way to really identify some goals that you have maybe for the semester or for the school year, for the season, or whatever it might be. But some great resources as well as images linked there. Has some lesson plans of how to create some vision boards through Google Slides. And then the other one is some like just different printable worksheets, different prompts, and just kind of outlined lesson plans for doing vision boards with students as well. Next up, we have one of the goals for on the CTE site. So another great lesson plan that is identified on that NDE site, really around targeting goals as well. Moving right along into self-regulation, we wanted to share some resources around that as well. So of course, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique is a great one to be able to really teach students kind of how to use that, maybe have some visuals in the classroom, maybe it's a visual on your desk or on your board or whatever it might be, as just one of those calming techniques. Another great one, quick and easy, that could be implemented throughout the whole school, maybe throughout a grade level. Maybe it's a particular color folder that's utilized, and when you're noticing a student that could really use a break time, needs to kind of re-regulate, maybe just needs a little movement break, maybe it's to avoid maybe a bigger classroom disruption, just kind of having that folder that gets delivered to maybe a nearby classroom, another teacher, maybe to the secretary in the front office, just as kind of one of those tasks, but a great way to just help promote that self-regulation there as well. And then lastly, on that slide, you'll see a great visual for emotional regulation, taking me to my calm zone, and lots of different ideas for that. Again, it could be printed off and hung in the classroom as well. Maybe going through each one of those and just kind of practicing together as a class as far as that self-regulation. Throwing in another one of those great lesson plans from the NDE CTE site on deep breathing. This particular one is targeted for 7th grade, but you are able to download those lesson plans on that site. So another one to come back to if you're needing some ideas for that. Really thinking about self-regulation and where you are on the continuum, really thinking about how our body feels, really kind of identifying those pieces. And I know Mackenzie mentioned that a couple times as well, but really thinking about using something like this or a continuum like this, just to do those quick little check-ins, not necessarily focusing on why we're feeling that particular way, but just kind of where we're falling on that continuum, and then being able to really kind of reflect from there. It kind of helps act as that prompt for those coping skills when we're feeling, anxious or when we're feeling upset. It's really better to start just kind of as that model or as that teacher to just kind of show like, hey, when I'm feeling anxious or when I'm feeling upset, I maybe talk to my friend, or maybe I take some deep breaths. Maybe I take a quick walk, or whatever it might be when you're feeling anxious or when you're feeling upset, really to just kind of help guide and to be able to model some of those. This is what I do when I'm feeling this way, but really can just kind of help identifying kind of where you are on that continuum. Couple other resources to share with you guys as well. This one here, this MSR, so Mindful Self-Regulation Awareness Checklist, really thinking about those body feels, and then some cues for us that we may be either in balance or out of balance. So we have that linked in there as well. Self-discipline, another one that falls within those self-management skills, but really thinking about different ways that we can promote that productive struggle, kind of what that means. And so we've outlined just kind of a few pieces there. So thinking about using group work, maybe offering a new starting place, acknowledging perseverance, maybe even setting the stage with an attitude that no effort is wasted. So we've just kind of identified some of those pieces there when we're thinking about self-discipline and really trying to promote that and kind of work through that. So some ideas to come back to when we're thinking about how do we target that self-discipline, especially within the classroom. And then last but not least, this is a great resource, tons and tons of just different links and downloadables within. We have that linked there. It's supplemental SEBL activities, but you're able to actually search for a variety of the different skills that we have talked about throughout our time together today. You can search for those skills. They have lots of downloadables, some free downloadables, some different like lesson plans and things like that to be able to target some of those skills. So definitely a website to bookmark and go back to when you're needing some different ideas to bring into the classroom and really integrating some of those skills within. And then that just brings us to a few reminders here. You've probably seen this before if you're joining us, but just some reminders of our upcoming dates for our Coffee Connects. Our next one is February 14th, and that is on relationship skills. We also have our flyer and our roadmap for some upcoming spring trainings that we would encourage you to check out. And then our exit ticket, especially if you need a certificate of attendance, certainly fill that out. We can get that sent to you. And then any feedback, questions, resources that you're looking for, topics that you're looking for, we would love to have you include in that exit ticket as well. And then with that, our optimistic closure. So really just kind of thinking about some of the different ideas or resources. And since we are out of time, this is just kind of going to be a challenge to you to really think about some of the resources and strategies that we shared throughout our time together today. What's one that you would like to try within the next week? What's one that you would maybe like to share with a friend or with a colleague? So that's just kind of our challenge to you. And we thank you for joining us this morning. Our contact information is here if you ever have any questions or are looking for any particular resources. We would love to hear from you. Thanks so much.